Hello guys, NautoAis here, and I want to give my thoughts on Dead End Request Code Z launch information because, first of all, it's been already announced that this game will be released on PS4 and PS5 on May 13th, and as of right now, it's going to be a PlayStation exclusive because Nintendo denied it. I already talked about that in a different video. So with that said also, IFI just announced that there will be a Steam version coming out in 2025. So again, options are there for there. You want to play it on Steam, PC, chances are the game probably going to be running in 60 frames. So if you're excited about the series, here we go. And just keep in mind that Dead End Request Code Z is a spin-off. Now, with that said also, it seems that sort of a, like I said, sort of a concern to some extent. It depends on your perspective. So in the past, when they first announced about this game in 2024, they did mention that the game will have English and Japanese voice. And on the website, they gave the same information. And to some extent, people who got the press release, the first information about this game, it did say that the game will have English and Japanese voiceover. However, credit to somebody on Twitter, they noticed that the website can update to only Japanese, and then when they revealed the trailer, it was only in Japanese, and then people who got the press release for the latest information about Code Z did confirm that, yes, unfortunately also, it is only in Japanese. So yes, so unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on your perspective, Dead End Request Code Z will only be in Japanese. So at one point they were thinking about English, but then they said no. So in the latest stream, people did talk about it, say what's going on and why. And credit to Bruce and Shay, they were trying to be transparent without getting in trouble. So on the stream itself, they basically talk about why the game is only in Japanese sub.
Neptune herself asked a question. Hey, I have a question for you. Is it true that Death and Request Code Z doesn't have English support? So it will have English subtitles, but no English voice. Yeah, no English dub, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And at this time, we don't have plans to add that, but yeah, it'll still be subtitle English. You'll still get the Japanese VA in our release, but yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy it. I've been playing a little bit of it.
Yeah.
And it's good.
Yeah, I've actually dabbled a little bit myself, and I'm a dungeon crawler fan myself, so I've been having a good time.
Yeah.
I've been having a good time.
Yeah.
Any reason why? Nothing that we can disclose at the moment, but I think when it comes to these kinds of things, I think something similar happened with Fairy Fencer F Refrain Chord when that was out. You know, folks are used to having a very fun English voice cast, and unfortunately, for various reasons, often logistical reasons, you know, it's not a possibility for newer titles, so we had to bring out Fairy Fencer for Refrain Chord without voice acting, and same thing with Death End Request Code Z, but I always like to rejoice at the fact that the games are still out in the West with subtitles, and that we can still enjoy them worldwide. So will it have English VA in the future? As Shay was saying, no future plans at the moment for integrating voice acting after launch, so that's kind of where we're at right now. Yeah appreciate y'all supporting still, though. Appreciate that. Yeah, of course. NautoAis, we do what we can. We do what we can.
All right. Here we are.
And as they said, unfortunately, it's out of their control. The belief that people said that it could be something to do with the voice strike with the AI, because if you've been following Hoyoverse and the SAG Guild, apparently there's some controversy, there was some argument. Not going to touch that, but they probably just want to stay away from it, because say that there were people who voicing this game and they were part of the strike and you decided to replace them, then you know what happened there. There's going to be a lot of kerfuffle. Probably Idea Factory National just didn't want to deal with it. That's someone's theory. But to some extent, just like the video, credit to Shay and Brew, they kind of try to explain without trying to get in trouble. So first of all, yes, you kind of hear the rhetoric response, the common thing of why XYZ is happening. In case for this, English dub, they said was, well, various circumstances, logistic reason, and unfortunately, to some extent, we can't really disclose on the situation why this is happening. So you may hear that time and time again when something happened, whether delay, they remove something, or just something changing the game. So I'm going to explain a bit first about this rhetoric that they kind of say before I give my thoughts about this whole situation. So first of all, they said was various circumstances. So to some extent, what it means is, based from my knowledge, what I know is anomalies. So if something happened, they're trying to fix it, some sort of circumstances there. So various, because it depends on what it is. So there's probably something there. They say, hey, we're not going to do this. We can't dub the game. Again, it could be the strike, could be not touching that. So yeah, various circumstances, chance of meaning anomaly. Logistic reason basically means things in business have to make sense. If it doesn't make sense, you're not going to do it. Just, it doesn't make sense. You get in trouble. You do something that's wrong. And then the outcome's probably going to be severe. You have to have logistic or make things make sense to some extent. That's why they kind of say that. Yeah, it kind of sound like, to some extent, like corporate response. But again, what can you do? Because the third one is disclosure. So they even said that to some extent, they can't really say, they can't disclose what the situation is. Oftentimes, it's legality, something to do either with the recording studio, maybe the people behind it. And just like the video of why XYZ is happening, as consumer, it's not really our business of what's happening. You can either support the game or not, vote with your wallets there. So they kind of trying to explain at least. So credit to them for being transparent, but it is unfortunate if you are a fan of English dub on Japanese game, especially in Idea Factory games. But there's also sort of a pattern that it seems to spin off based on the main game. They don't really dub them because this is not the first time this happened. Credit to Shay and Bruce once again that apparently Fairy Fencer recorded, if you know there's no dub, and when they asked Rob Dizzle, I think at the time he just said, well, the game's not going to be dubbed in the end. Again, same probably reason. They don't want to get in trouble. So they try not keep it in down low, just not talk about it. Doesn't always work, but again, it is what it is. So apparently credit to Bruce that they were considered dubbing that game, but again, something happened. They said no. Other one that kind of more reasonable of why they did to some extent. First of all, Ark of the Alchemist. The rumor about that one is due to the poor sale in Japan, they decided not to put more money in. That's why for a while they didn't even want to do a physical version for this game. But then they kind of got help from limited run games. Virtual Star Neptunia, due to the budget, because they're spending a lot of money for the V2 for license. So they just ended up, well, we can't really dub it. And even if you do a paid English dub DLC, I'll talk about it later. They just say, nope, we're not going to do that. And of course, the infamous one, Neptunia versus Senran Kagura. It was a request from Marvelous not to dub the Senran Kagura voice actors. They just said, okay. So you might say, well, how come Neptunia versus Sega Hard Girl, the Sega Hard Girl have an English voice? True. I don't know what the story behind that. Maybe the people behind it gave permission, said, yeah, it's fine. Add some English voice actors for the Sega Hard Girls. I don't know. That's just what I'm guessing. So again, it's sort of a case-by-case basis there. So yeah, surprisingly, that to some extent they were considering some of this game, but of course, like I said, there's some reason why they just don't do it. So it is unfortunate, again, if you're a English dub supporter, especially for IF5 games. Yeah, if you notice some other games, they don't do it, such as Azure Lane and Toho, because it's not the right P. Chances are either they have to talk to whatever has an English dub, like in the case with Azure Lane, you might have to talk to Crunchyroll or Bangzoo. I don't know who runs it. Again, union versus non-union, they probably rather not just spend the money. And then sometimes also just comes up with money because, again, to some extent, if you followed, I talked about this before, My Hero Academia 2 for, video game, In the beginning, it didn't have an English dub. Later on, they just added in, and someone said because there was butting heads to some extent, and the deal just fell through, didn't really work. So it is what it is there. So now another thing is a lot of people did say, is it possible to add English dub in a VIA update or a paid DLC? And of course, they said no. And because unfortunately, not all company will do this. It's a rarity for a company to do it. Like I said, Namco Bandai with My Hero Academia, and to some extent, Sega, Like a Dragon Gaiden, but no, that's already been planned English dub, but they just couldn't do it on launch, because if you follow Lost Judgment, there was some controversy with that game, with the lip singing. It had English dub, which is cool, but the lip singing was like, people didn't like it, and I guess Scott said, yeah, unfortunately, due to worldwide release, which is difficult for them, and then they got better in the long run. But in the case with Like a Dragon Gaiden, they say when the game was released, the English dub wasn't ready yet until I think it was December, so it wasn't really that long. But the bottom line, what I'm saying here is that in the case with Idea Factory International, like it or not, they have a policy not to do it. The minute the game is out, if it doesn't have English dub, that's it. They're not going to add it in a VIA update, even if you say paid DLC, which the reason why they don't do that is chances are people are not going to buy it, just saying there. But yeah, so the policy is the minute the game is out, and if it doesn't have English dub, don't bother. So there you go. So once again, Dead End Request Code Z will be coming out not only in PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, but also on Steam in 2025. And apparently at one point there was planned to be an English dub, and then they said no. And they said it, logistic reason, various circumstances to a point that they can't disclosure. To some extent, probably it's a political thing. Maybe it's a business thing. Who knows? And they're really not going to be very transparent to a point that you might get ideas. They can't do it because it might affect them, or even the voice actor or the voice recording studio. Who knows? And hopefully that Idea Factory will do some sort of like update or DLC on past game. Unfortunately, you got to keep in mind that they are not a big company, and they used to be a support company for something else. So anything like adding a new DLC, like a new feature like in Sister vs. Sister, where the Switch version has 2 additional characters, they're not going to do that. Adding frame rate for a game, they're not going to do it. They can only do sort of minor updates. Once the game is out, that's it. It is kind of unfortunate. That's why a lot of people did say that. How come? But again, like I said, they're a small company. They used to be a supporting company. That's why. So if they outsource it to someone else, maybe, but I don't think they're going to do that anytime soon. So there you go. So for me personally, I'm bummed out that doesn't have English dub. It is what it is. They can't put English dub in every game. In the past, they had tried that, but of course, there were some rumors that it was costing them a lot of money. Same goes with Tecmo Koei, believe it or not. That's why in future game, it's a case-to-case basis. If the game's worth adding an English dub, they'll do it, i.e. Neptunia series, to some extent there. But to some other games, yeah, and it's going to suck that why is it the main game has English dub, then the spin-off doesn't? And again, Bruce kind of explained it, that there was at one point they considered, but various circumstances, logistic reason, can't disclose the situation, and that's why. So there you go, my thoughts about it. It's unfortunate, but at least the game's going to come out in the West. Yes, at one point they considered, but now they just said, they go 180 and said, yeah, we can't do it again. It is what it is. Kind of sucky. Hopefully, Idea Factory National, you know, I'm one of your big supporter. I like the games. I enjoy them, but do better. Just saying there, it's not a hate. It's a concern because time and time again that there's always going to be a situation where, I'm going to consider putting English dub for a particular game. Oh, no, we're not going to do it anymore due to reasons. That's why. So anyway, with that, I'll see you guys later.